Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. Brian, if you want, you can stay on up here.
Well, good morning. We're going to kick off the testimony time. This is a really exciting time, I think, for us. Just you're going to hear from multiple different people of different ministries that they're involved in, things that God has laid on their heart to be a part of. And one of the things that we really hope with this is that kind of get a vision. If God is laying something on your heart, if God is stirring you or revealed to you a need, don't be afraid to take it on and explore it. I think everybody that's up here that's going to be talking, these are things that God has laid on their heart. They saw a need, they pursued it, and now they're involved in a ministry that's helping to change people's life. I wanted to talk to you specifically about GCGs. But to do that, I kind of want to go all the way back to when I first became a Christian. I'd been a Christian for about a year and a half. I entered into an ethnic studies class in college, and the professor on the first day of class began to tell me, and all of us in the class, if you were a white Christian male, you didn't matter, because Christianity was a fraud, being white was a privilege, and he just kind of dismissed all of us. Well, being young and very naive in my faith, I figured I was going to go into his office and set him straight. After about 45 minutes of that, he destroyed me, completely just wiped me out. I came home to my college dorm room questioning my faith, questioning God, questioning Christianity, questioning everything I thought I knew. The only thing I knew to do was to grab my Bible. I opened up to Galatians, and the first verse I read said, "I'm astonished that you are so quickly turning from the one who showed you the grace of Christ and turning to another gospel, which is really no gospel at all." In that moment, God got a hold of me and said, if you are going to follow me, you have to know me, and you have to know my word. It's not enough to be passionate. You have to know me. So from that point on, I started getting involved in small groups. Throughout college, after college, I was involved in small groups, leading small groups. Sometimes they're mixed, guys and girls, sometimes just guys groups. But being involved and learning and being pushed and being challenged, and then starting to lead them. And I'll be honest, leading small groups was more of a learning experience for me than even being in small groups. But God has used that in my life to challenge me, to grow me, to transform what I thought I knew to what I know now, helping me to understand this amazing God that we serve, helping me to understand His Word, and then being able to take that and lead other people in those things. And right now in our church, my wife and I are leading a small group on Wednesday nights. We're also helping to lead a young adults group. And it's amazing to see what happens in those groups. One of the very first classes we led, one of the individuals in our class said, I read this stuff and I just don't get it. But I come here and I listen to everybody talk about it and I understand it. And that's the reality of small group. You get plugged into a group of people that can help you learn and grow and understand this relationship and understand what it means to walk this relationship with God out, and then understand, how can I impact others? How can I go forward and make a difference in the life of somebody that doesn't know Jesus yet? And that's just a really neat thing about being plugged into small group. There's a sense of community and of belonging where in our small groups we pray for each other, we pray for the needs of one another, we get to know and learn about each other's lives, and you get invested with people, but you also get to grow with those people and see them come along in their faith. And I'm amazed so often in the small groups when I'm leading, and then someone says something about a passage I've read 100 times, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. And you just get to learn and grow. So I would encourage you guys, if you're thinking about being in a small group, if you're thinking about wanting to join something, explore what's out there. Get together with Pastor Trent, find one of the elders, find out what the groups are, and get plugged in. And if you go to a group and it's not your thing, find another group. No one's going to be offended by it. Just figure out where you fit, where you plug in, and get engaged. And if God's laying it on your heart to maybe lead a group, there's something that you feel that God is leading you to, again, seek out Pastor Trent, seek out one of the elders, and find out how you can be involved with that. Now we're going to bring up Andrea Otto, and she's going to share with you about adoption.
Morning. I wish I could do without notes, but I really can't. So I don't know if the same holds for you, but when there is something God really wants to teach me, he seems to put it in front of me quite frequently in many different people and many different things that I read. It just keeps coming to the surface. Over this past year, there's been a lot of times, a lot of people that God's put in my path to kind of put before me the idea of the stones of remembrance. So from Joshua chapter 4, when the Israelites had crossed the river with the ark of God, God told Joshua to have one man from each tribe take a stone from the bottom of the river in front of the ark of the Lord and pile them up at their campsite. As Joshua told them, we will use these to build a memorial. In the future, your children will ask you, what do these stones mean? And then you can tell them, they remind us that the Jordan River stopped flowing when the ark of the Lord's covenant went across. These stones will stand as a memorial among the people of Israel forever. God did this so all the nations might know that the Lord's hand is powerful, and so you might fear the Lord your God forever. As Brian said, I am Andrea Otto. My husband Matt and we've been married for 26 years, and we have 3 children. Ironically, none of them are here with me today, so I can't just introduce you. Emily is 14, and she's at home with our 2 boys who have kind of runny noses and stuff, so Connor and Daniel. And we've been in this part of Ohio for 14 years and in New Bremen for 11 years, and that's actually the longest I've ever lived anywhere. We moved quite a bit growing up. There's a lot of things I could share with you about my life, and even before my walk with Jesus became really just a reality to me, God was always a presence in my life, even at those times where I didn't know it, and I certainly didn't recognize it. He was laying down those stones of remembrances for me, building on things that he knew I would need in the future. I've had the privilege to watch God work in some really awesome ways, one of which continues to be, the adoption of our 3rd child, Daniel, from China. I had always wanted to adopt. It took almost 20 years, though, for God's timing to match mine. And in late 2015, I just felt God really prompting me to just pray faithfully about adopting. Adoption stories would just fill my heart, and I just knew it was his will that we would be praying about this, either to change my heart or to change Matt's heart and bring us into alignment together. When Matt said he was ready in November 2016, he was recovering from spine surgery. I was elated. I was horribly nervous, and I was still elated. And all the feelings, I didn't expect to have any difficulty in welcoming another child into our home. From the beginning of this process, of our adoption process, we felt that we were walking right in the center of God's will. God made his presence known in so many ways. The timing of the paperwork, everything went through so much faster than it should have. The families we traveled with, even our health. We went into the process, both of us, Matt and I, with some physical concerns. And yet while we were in China, not only were we healthy, we also physically both felt stronger than we had in probably a long time. It was as if God was confirming that this is what he wanted for us. And he was giving me my own stones of remembrances for the days to come. Saying yes to adoption was somewhat of the easy part. Even though it took more than 20 years for my timing to match God's, I still wasn't fully prepared. We had gone through training, we covered the process in prayer, we had no doubts that this was the right path and that God was going before us, he was behind us. But there were many times that I cried out to God to fill those holes. I could forget so easily how faithful he had been and how faithful he promised to be. Throughout the stones that he has laid in my life, he reminded me that he has always been faithful, and he always would be. He would provide just enough of whatever I needed in that moment. So just like he was providing the manna in the wilderness, there was enough for that day. And I've seen his miracles. I've experienced the provision of just enough. Now my heart just proudly swells at each hug, each mama, each time I hear I love you and look in those deep brown eyes. I know God is faithful to finish the work he began in me and my family, and he doesn't need me, but I'm so glad that he's wanted to use me. God has called me to different things in my life that have challenged me, and they've changed me for the better. Marriage, homeschooling, adoption, and I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what God has planned. Just this week, we adopted a puppy, which I said I'd never do. So I do know, though, when I say yes, God is bigger than any of my I don't knows. He's bigger than any of my what ifs. Apart from him, I can do nothing. So if you believe God's calling you to think about adoption, just search your heart. I would encourage you to seek his answers. Trust in his timing. Give him the opportunity to show you what he can do. If you have questions, I know most of our adoptive families will be just so happy to talk with you. Matt and I would as well. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you today. And now I will introduce Raquel Brown, who's going to talk to us about the ESL.
Hi, I'm Raquel Brown, and I'll be talking to you about the ESL ministry. ESL stands for English as a Second Language. All of our students that have come to check us out have been from Asia and Mexico for the most part. When we first started this back in, I think it was 2019 when we thought about it, we started praying about it. I was wondering, where are we going to find these students? Because if you look around, we don't see a whole lot of foreigners around here. But we prayed, we went to a training, and February 2020 is when we had our kickoff. And God brings people to us. Like, we send out flyers, and I hope that they have worked, but I think almost everything has been by word of mouth. I think Larita found Lucy one time at the library and told her, and Lucy has been one of the ladies from China that comes. You might have met her. She's so, so friendly. And she's invited more people to come and join us, and it has been quite an honor to get to know these men and women that come every week. They're very, very faithful. Once they start coming, they usually come every week unless they literally move out of state. So that's been also really neat to see that they enjoy coming enough that they come time and time again. We don't have tons of students, like 6 to 10 depending on the day, and we have about 6 teachers as well. And it has been really good so that we can meet one-on-one, whatever their needs are. Like, I usually do level 1. We have 1 through 5. And that way we can just go as fast or as slow as they need. And it is just a great opportunity to get to know people from other countries and to give them just a glimpse of who God is, and even you guys as a church. I don't know how many of you have met Lucy or some of the other students at dinner, sometimes on Wednesday nights when they come, but they have mentioned to me how this church is so friendly. Like, every time you guys smile at them or welcome them, start a conversation with them, they notice that, and I just want to thank you guys for being a really welcoming church. One of the really neat things about doing this ministry is being able to not only help them to learn English, but also to try to tell them a little bit about what we believe as Christians. A lot of them have some kind of Catholic background, so then we have something that we can talk about, but some of them don't at all. And so even this morning, we had our first meeting. We are doing one on Sunday morning about what Christmas is, and they were looking at our nativity set that Mike brought, and they were like, why are there sheep here? Like, what does this have to do with anything? And it's like, I forget. Like, it's so normal to us. Of course there were sheep when we talk about Jesus' birth. So just trying to talk about how, yes, we think, like, we believe he's the Son of God, but he was born, like, in a farm, like, trying to say it in a way they understand. So it's just been really neat, like, for me to have to explain some of these things that we kind of take for granted. Having to explain Easter was kind of difficult. Or when we did the Passover, and they came to the Passover feast that we had, trying to explain why we celebrate the blood of the lamb and talking about that. That sounds weird if you've never heard of it before. So, yeah, it's been really fun, growing, stretching for me. It's one of my highlights of my week. And I know it's not for everyone, but if you are interested in getting to hang out with us, either at dinner or at classes, and get to know them, it is really a blessing to spend time with the ESL students, and just a fun, challenging way to try to be the hands and feet of Jesus. Right now, we're going to listen to Foster Care or Fostering from the Lamberts.
All right, so those of you who don't know us, James and Kristen Lampert, we've been fostering for about 3.5 years, actually just a little over 3.5 years now. But to kind of take you back to kind of how it got started or how we felt God calling us towards foster care, adoption was always something we were both passionate about. It was always something we had hoped and planned for even before we knew each other. Like, I knew I wanted to adopt someday. Kristen knew she wanted to adopt someday. So, it's a testimony in and of itself of God bringing us together. So adoption actually was plan A for us in regards to how we felt God calling us to start a family. So about 2016, it was about a little over a year after we were married, we reached out to some adoption agencies, went to some meetings, and found out pretty quickly at that time it probably wasn't going to be financially feasible for us. And so we just thought, we'll put that on hold, but someday we will definitely adopt. And then for about a few months after that, Kristen just really started thinking about foster care. And foster care wasn't something that I'd ever really considered. Again, adoption was always my hope and intent, but foster care was definitely something that God had placed on Kristen's heart a bit before he placed on mine. And so she started praying about it, writing about it, journaling about it. She would sit on Sunday mornings taking notes, and somehow it would always lead towards praying for foster care. And so sooner or later, obviously I started to think about it, and really it was, again, a testimony of really God's word, how it is living and active, because he spoke to us directly through different passages and really confirmed that we needed to be obedient and pursue foster care. So in 2017 was really when we started the training, and by 2018 we were licensed, and so we've been fostering since then.
And so just to take you briefly through some of our story, we were placed with our first little guy in July of 2018. He was 7 months old. He was only with us for 5 weeks. And at the time, we assumed he was going to be with us longer. And so it was hard to kind of see what God's plan was and all of that. But somehow I really only knew his mom for about 3 of those weeks, I think. And we just connected, and we still stay in touch, and she still invites me to his birthday parties. So it's been really cool to get to still have a relationship with her and get to see him grow. And so then after he left, our next placement was a 20-month-old little boy. He came to us in January of 2019, and he was with us for about 5 months. And he stretched us, and it was really hard, and we learned a lot. We learned a lot of just how foster kids can heal through some of the trauma they've experienced, and it was also a blessing of our church family really coming alongside us and supporting us during that time. And then after he left, we were placed with 2 little boys in June of 2019, who you all know. Bentley and Carter, and then they were with us for a year, and at that point, then their biological little sister, was placed with us in 2020. And then just this past, September, we got to adopt Bentley and Carter, and then in December, we will get to adopt their little sister, Lily. And then in this past February, we found out that I was pregnant. And so we just had a little girl here in October. So God's plans are always a lot bigger than ours, that's for sure. Do you want to share
the story?
Okay. So I got to share, I guess, about foster care here this past October at the missions conference. And I didn't know what to share because I had somewhat shared our testimony before, and I was thinking about it all day, and Bentley, our oldest, came home from school, and he got out his library books because it was library day, and he asked if I could read his books. And when I started reading it, I got through one of his books, and it was called Farmer Herman in the Flooding Barn. And when I got to the end of the book, I said, Bentley, do you know what this book's about? And he was like, no. I was like, it's about foster care. So that was just an awesome testimony that he picked out that book himself. But I want to share some statistics from that book. So I don't know if any of you have heard of this book before. Oops, my notes just went away. Oh, good, I didn't delete them. That would be bad. So this is actually a true story it was in the 1900s, and this farmer had a barn at the bottom of a hill. And when they had heavy rains, it would flood. Well, he couldn't afford to rebuild his barn somewhere else, so he calculated about how much weight the barn was and how many people it would take to use metal poles to lift up the barn and carry it up the hill. And so they found out that it would take 344 people to work together to lift up the barn to carry it up the hill. And they accomplished that. And so this book is an encouragement for people to work together because the big problem we have is foster care. There are over 400,000 kids in foster care in the U.S. alone, and there are not enough families, is the unfortunate reality. Lots of kids get sent out of states. And a lot of kids sometimes get overlooked and they don't get placed in foster care because the agency knows they don't really have a place for the kid to go. So there are a lot of hurting kids who could use foster care. And we've had the blessing of getting to see reunification and obviously adoption. We are so thankful to have the 3 kiddos that we have. But the reunification process is something so beautiful that you can't really... It's hard to understand. A lot of people ask, aren't you so sad that they left? But it's beautiful to get to see someone who's really broken just get fully restored. And so don't be afraid of that. If you have any questions or comments about foster care that you'd like to learn from us, we'd love to talk about it. We got to kind of do both. So we'd love to be able to have that opportunity to share. So, James.
Kind of stole my part, but yeah. Oh, sorry. So yeah, as Kristen said, as I was going to say, if you would like to talk or to know more about foster care, we'd be happy to speak with you, just to continue to really emphasize the reality that there is a great need, and that was really part of our confirmation that we needed to do this, specifically in Ohio, you should all be well aware of the opioid crisis, the drug problem. And we know in Ohio in itself, sending kids out of state because we're at complete maximum capacity of foster parents to kids who need homes. So we desperately need godly foster homes. We need godly caseworkers, youth or college students. If you're interested in social work, I wish I could say it's going to be a really high-paying job. It's not, unfortunately. And again, these are just one examples of. I'm not going to lie, the foster care system, it's broken. It needs fixed. There's an unfortunate reality that it takes a lot of bad, I guess, for a kid to even be noticed. And so the sad reality is there are kids who should be in foster care who are not currently. Chris and I are well aware of this reality, just things we've learned over the last few years. So I mean, we need people who just advocate for this need. Even if you're not interested in being a foster parent, that's fine. There is just a great need all around. So we would be happy to speak with you on that. At this point, I'll have Quincy Voizard come up. She's going to speak about Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
All right, hello everyone. As James said, my name is Quincy Voizard, and I'm going to be talking about an organization that is dear to my heart, which is FCA, and as James said, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So raise of hands, how many of you guys know what this organization is? Oh, sweet. Okay, lots of hands out there. So FCA is an organization where high schoolers are able to come together and learn more about Jesus through Bible studies, devotions, and speakers coming in and sharing a message. So I first heard of this organization my freshman going into sophomore year of high school at the Life Conference with the youth group here at Faith Alliance. And one of my friends was sharing about her huddle at New Bremen and how it had helped deepen her faith and also created a Christian community within their school. And I knew that was something that I wanted to bring to my home school, Fort Laramie. So after getting back from the church camp, I asked James for contact information to get one started. And I remember having my phone in one hand and a script of what I wanted to say to the director. And almost hitting the phone call, I freaked out and I froze. And all that enthusiasm and excitement to start a huddle kind of washed away, and fear and insecurity started to flood in. Thoughts like I wasn't good enough to start one, nobody would come, I would get made fun of, just started popping into my head. So in that moment, I just asked Jesus, I was like, for some guidance. And he reminded me of a moment from that church camp life where it had all started, where the youth group was actually in the front row of the conference. Thank you to Cameo, Cedar Leaf, and Journey Boyle for fighting their way through to get us those spots. And a woman had actually come up to me and started praying for me. She said, Heavenly Father, I pray that you give courage and boldness to your daughter, that she can lead armies in your name. And at that moment, I didn't really think much of it. But 2 weeks later, while I was in my room contemplating just forgetting everything and kind of move on with my life, that prayer meant everything. And I ended up making that phone call, and the rest was kind of history. The Lord provided, and we had a place to meet, and then he also laid that desire on 3 other girls' hearts, one of them being my twin sister. And on that first meeting, we actually had 30 students who came in, and we've been going strong for about 2 years. This is our third, where we have about 40 to 50 people who come each week. So last year, I decided to go to the Upper Valley Career Center, and I wanted to start an FCA group there as well. And it was a little bit more difficult, but now we have about 7 girls who come each week, and it's a great place to just, rely on each other and have that Christian community, which is what I believe what I've taken the most from FCA, because in high school you have so many different influences coming at you, and it's important to deepen your faith with Christ or start one and just have that Christian community to help you get through. So one of my favorite Bible verses, which I think FCA really just talks about, is Matthew 28:18-20, which says, Then Jesus came to them and said, All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I'm with you always to the very end of the age. So this is the mission for us as disciples of Jesus. So if you feel called to pour into the youth, please talk to me or get involved with your local FCA huddle. We'd love to have you. So next, help me introduce Heidi with the Disabilities Ministry.
Good morning. That seems really loud in my brain. Yes, my name is Heidi, and I'm here to speak about the Disabilities Ministry. Our team is in process, as we all are who are sitting in this room. We're made of friends, loved ones, parents, and professionals who not only live with individuals with special needs, but work with individuals with special needs. So for my family, this is more than just professional. My daughter Mia was diagnosed with autism when she was 12, and I'm getting emotional not because of the diagnosis, but because of how she lives it out. That's the heart of the ministry. That's the heart we want to share. That just like everyone who's come up here before, we are just answering a call that God has given us based on our experiences. And so because of those experiences, he shows us the way of promise, the way of just celebrating our uniquenesses and our differences. We just, as a team, want to be that active and intentional piece of our Great Commission that has our church family goal, like knowing God and making him known. And that's in every part of who you are made. And so last week, Pastor Josh preached about how our church family represents the people of God who are intergenerational. So as a church family, that's who we are. But our team desires to be a part of that reality by not only showing every person's age and stage, but delighting in your gift and ability. Wherever you are on any spectrum of gifting and ability, he has a place and a purpose for you. As image bearers of Christ, I know he's made me that every person I sit across from professionally and personally, I love seeing God in them. Whether they know God or not, he made them. They bear his image. And in any struggle they have, both internal or external, or every difference or ability we have, both internal and external, as a church family, what I love about my church family is we have the privilege of serving and caring and submitting to one another in all our needs, be that emotional, spiritual, developmental, or physical. And as a team, we're prayerful to develop ways to meet educational, training, worship, discipleship needs for everyone, wherever you are in those needs. So for starters, there's a sensory corner in the educational wing for times to relax and refocus. It's in the children's wing, but adults, you can have fun with it too. I have. But for adults who don't want to go over there and have fun in the sensory corner, and you know you need in this space things for your sensory differences, let our team know so that we can start to support you in those ways as well. You can show the drawing. And I want to tell you that we mean it when we say that every person has a purpose and every person has a place and a way that they can serve in ministry because of how you were made. Not in spite, but because of the differences you have, God is going to give you a purpose and a place and a meaning and a reason for being here, and it's something you can do. So my daughter Mia drew this for our disabilities ministry. She developed that logo, and then someone else digitized it. Maddie Pape digitized it, so show the next one. So that's how we're using Mia's unique gifting. And I want to know how we can use yours. So if you want to come alongside our team, whether serving with us or just being someone of experience with a disability who knows what we're missing in our church home that can serve you better, we need all that information. We not only need people who can serve alongside us in all of your differences, but someone who can say, hey, here's a difference you're missing. Yeah, we are, because we're human. And so I appreciate every information and every help we can get. I want you to know that we are just excited to celebrate your differences with you, and we're excited to get to know you. And I think that's all I have, because I did go off script. If it's not all I had, feel free to talk to me and ask me if there was more. But also, if you have a question about special needs, about how you can serve, how you can be with us, I'm open to that. So thank you. Next up, we get to celebrate adding to our church family. We get to celebrate baptism. So I don't know who I hand off to. I hand it off to the guy in the shorts. Here you go, Pastor Trent. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. All right, so yeah, that's really just a glimpse at some of what God's up to in the church family, and there's so much happening in families and individuals' lives that a lot of people aren't even aware of. So we just wanted to take a little time to celebrate that in the way that God's on the move in people's lives and in their homes. So, just reach out to any one of them if you have interests or questions. I know we could have brought up a slew of other people that are chasing after things as well, and all of you in different ways probably. So that's a big thing that we're chasing after here at Faith Alliance Church, is just equipping, mobilizing people to be engaging the people around you in your sphere of influence. So whatever that looks like for you, just do it for the glory of God. And now we get to do a little baptism time, so that's why I got my shorts on and no socks, and I'm going to invite up those being baptized this morning. You all can come forward. We have 4 people getting baptized this morning, so Sawyer, Cole, Lily,